Good afternoon, everyone. Please make yourselves comfortable. Unfortunately, the Minister is not available, so last minute I've decided that I would just mention about the civic service, which was successfully held this this Sunday. I'd like to thank everybody who did attend. It was very well attended and it was a joyous occasion. And as you may know, my chosen charity this year are the Scouts and Guides, and they really raised the rafters on Sunday. There was great fun, and it was excellent seeing them all. And just like us all to reflect about why we are councillors, what we do. And the main word throughout the service was kindness. And without kindness, the world wouldn't be a very nice place. We see areas across the world where kindness doesn't prevail. And as councillors, I think we need to remember that before making any decisions or assumptions about issues, before we start criticising people and jumping to conclusions, we should be aware of the facts. And my consort, Alderman Moyse, is here today, and she taught me a very useful thing when I was first elected in 2007, when she said, remember, there's always more than one point to an argument or a discussion. So I'd just like you just to close your eyes and just think about the times that perhaps you've jumped in with both feet, shouted at people, and maybe been very cruel to somebody because of your preconceived ideas or because you feel so strongly about something that you don't actually listen to somebody. So just think about it. Close your eyes and just think. Thanks. And we noticed the people that did and didn't. So we need to be kind to each other. Thank you very much. Whoops, can't get used to this gong. So, I welcome everyone to the council meeting, the 1st of October 2024. Mr. White, may we have the apologies of absence?
Thank you, Mayor. For this afternoon's council meeting, we have apologies from councillors Southcott, Watts, Kimber, Dexter, Oxborough and Viney, and for the public record, councillors Southcott, Watts, Oxborough and Viney are all joining the meeting via Teams today, remotely.
Right. Well, welcome councillors online. Item 2, confirmation of minutes. There's one set of minutes, the annual council, 21st of May 2024, to be approved as a true and correct record by the meeting. Proposer? Yeah, proposer, please. Thank you, Councillor Ewings. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Renders. All those in favour?
Thank you, Mayor. That's clearly carried for the approval of the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. I invite members to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered in this meeting. And I'm now going to my Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's just a query on obviously item 8A. It's regarding pensioners' rights. and I'm just worried that there might be quite a few pensioners in the room today. I am one of those, and I'm wondering if that would affect the vote.
Thank you. Monitoring officer, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm satisfied that there's no interest, because I think it's an interest which you share with a large proportion of the population of West Devon. Or should I say a sizable proportion of the population of West Devon.
Moving on, thank you very much for raising that. So any old age pensioners there, you can talk. Sorry. Agenda item 4, communication from the Mayor. I was going to chat about the, I was going to mention the civic service, but I did that in the introduction, so I'll move on. So item 5, business brought forward by the Mayor. None have been brought forward to me as Mayor, but I know that the leader has something to discuss. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item was brought forward to me by Councillor Mann and the Mayor, and it is a potential to seek the update of the member appointment on the Tamar Valley National Landscapes Committee. That member to be the lead hub member for climate and biodiversity for the remainder of the 24-25 municipal year, which is Councillor Mann. Thank you.
Thank you. Noted? Oh, can we have a seconder for Councillor Mann?
Happy to second.
Thank you. All those in favour?
That's unanimous for the recommendation as per the screens. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 6, public question. Questions? Just check.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 7, questions of notice. No questions of notice from members. Just check.
That's also correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 8, motions of notice. 2 motions on notice received. A motion of notice received from Councillor Jury. Councillor Jury, could you please move the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I start, can I just ask members to cast their minds back a few months? We actually had a by-election back in May, and I just wanted to pass my congratulations on to Councillor Greenbury-Pullen, who was the victor in that by-election, and welcome you to your first full council meeting. So you're very welcome and look forward to working with you. It won't have escaped anyone's notice either that we had a general election since our last meeting. And I wonder if the council can extend its congratulations to the 3 MPs that this area now returns, or whose constituencies impact on this borough. So Geoffrey Cox, Mel Stride and Rebecca Smith, and congratulate them on their election to Parliament. And I'd also like us to note that we had 2 councillors who were standing in that general election as well, Councillor Greenbury-Pullen and Councillor Saxby. And I want to extend congratulations to them and thank them for putting their heads up above the parapet and being prepared to stand up for their communities. So well done to everybody. If I might now turn to the matter of the motion I'd like to propose. The motion reads as follows. This council has a wide-ranging responsibility for the general well-being of the residents of the borough and has always taken that responsibility seriously. Furthermore, it has always acknowledged the effect of fuel poverty within our area on the most disadvantaged sections of our community and, in particular, elderly residents. The council has offered council tax support and has distributed household support payments to those most in need, as well as providing funding to enable the Citizens Advice Bureau to provide support, advice and guidance to those groups. The council regrets the decision by the Labour government to end universal winter fuel payments, which could adversely affect many of the 16,273 residents of pension age, as at the 2021 census date, in West Devon, and cause many of them to fall into fuel poverty. We call on the Leader of the Council to write to the Chancellor urging a review of the decision to restrict eligibility to those in receipt of pension credits and other benefits. This is to ensure that vulnerable pensioners, particularly those that do not claim pension credits, are protected from financial hardship. council notes that many pensioners eligible for credits do not apply for them and will lose winter fuel payments as a result. Therefore, we resolve to undertake an awareness campaign to encourage residents in West Devon to check their eligibility. This includes the use of social media, promotion in the local press and the council's website. If I could have a seconder for the motion, please.
Thank you. So, seconded by Councillor Edmonds. I'll now invite people to... Pardon?
So having been seconded, the motion is now Councillor Jury has a chance to introduce his motion.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce your motion? I thought you just had.
Thank you. I think the motion says it all, really. I think we all realise that the winter fuel payment is a fairly blunt instrument, nevertheless quite effective in return for a fairly minimal cost in getting support out to pensioners and vulnerable people in the community at a very important time, which helps them to manage their winter fuel bills. It also shouldn't escape notice that with a pensionable population of around 28% of our population who are pensioners, and the known areas of fuel deprivation and poverty within West Devon, that this may affect us, our area, quite severely. And even that £300 over that number of pensioners is going to impact on the local economy. So I'd very much like us to support this motion and make our position clear to the government, but also put in place some additional resources to make sure that those most in need can get the support that they deserve.
Thank you, Councillor Jury. I'm now inviting you to debate, including any amendments proposed and seconded, and only one at a time, and one opportunity for each member. Councillor Jury, you will have the right to reply at the end of the debate, but you may not otherwise speak on it. So, yeah, Councillor Elliott, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to propose an amendment. It's quite a long text, so it's been very helpful that Mr. White has prepared this in advance, so we've got the amendment on the screen. So shall I now speak to the amendment? Is that appropriate?
Could we have you a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Mann. Yeah, no, you can speak to it, thanks.
Okay, so I'd like to propose this amendment really in a good spirit, and I'd like to thank Councillor Jury for putting this on the agenda, because I think it's a very important issue. And I think I'd like to say a couple of things about the key issues here, and then move specifically to the way that we've amended this motion. So firstly, we're aware that there is huge fuel poverty, it's a concern, but we've got to think about the real causes of fuel poverty. And part of that is to do with poor insulation, the poor quality of our housing infrastructure. So in many ways, you could say...
Excuse me, I'm going to let you sit down because the microphone works much better if you're happy with that.
Yeah, that's
Is
fine.
that all right?
I'll sit down and hopefully the microphone will work much better.
Yes, it does. They are.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. So
is that better for everyone? Can hear
so to make
now.
the sort of broader point, we need to think about the things that the council is doing, not just to support people, and the government is doing not just to support people in poverty, but also to improve the housing infrastructure. So that's a sort of broader point. But to really look at the way that we've amended this motion. So firstly, the first two paragraphs are really just very minor textual differences, and it's to try and make the motion more forward-looking. We can't really guarantee that this Borough Council has always taken things very seriously, but we can, as a council, say that we will take this very seriously now and in the future, and take seriously the well-being of our residents. So that's the first two paragraphs. I'm not going to read them out because that seems too long-winded, but I'm hoping everyone can see things on the screen. Is that all right, Madam Mayor? Or would you prefer me to read it out?
I can't read it very clearly. How do members feel? Have you all had a chance to read it? And do you feel
the first two? I'll read it. This council has a wide-ranging responsibility for the well-being of the residents of the borough and takes that responsibility seriously. Furthermore, it acknowledges the effect of fuel poverty within our area on the most disadvantaged sections of our community, and in particular elderly residents. The council offers council tax support and distributes household support payments to those most in need, as well as contributing funding to enable the Citizens Advice Bureau to provide support, advice and guidance. So very minor wording changes to those first two paragraphs. In the third paragraph, which I'll read, this council regrets the decision by the Labour government to restrict winter fuel payments only to those in receipt of pensioner credit. This is likely adversely to affect a substantial proportion of those residents of pension age on a lower income in West Devon. So the main changes here is that we've taken out the figure of the number of pensioners, which is 16,273, because in a way that gives a false exaggeration of the number of people likely to be really adversely affected here. So looking at a number of different reports from a number of different reputable bodies, we're looking at there being about 11% is the best figure I can get for fuel poverty amongst people of pensionable age. So it's 11.4% for those over 75. It's about 12.4% for those in the 65 to 74 age bracket. So when you average those out, you're talking about 11 or 12%. So we're not saying that most pensioners or many pensioners. And I think a key point here that we have to grapple with is to show huge compassion and practical compassion to those most disadvantaged in our community. But we mustn't neglect the fact that there's huge inequality, and there are many pensioners living in West Devon who really don't need the winter fuel payment. So as Councillor Jury said, it's a blunt instrument, and I think this is the issue. It's removing it as a universal benefit. So we do regret the decision, and we do agree in this amendment that it's likely to adversely affect a substantial proportion, but we're not putting the figures in because we feel that that gives just too much of an exaggeration, that it's not going to be 16,000 people that are adversely affected. It's more likely to be 2,000 or 3,000. So then moving on to the fourth and fifth paragraphs, I'll read them out. But again, I don't think there's anything hugely to disagree with here. What we've done is to reverse the order of the paragraphs. So the old paragraph 5 is amended to be paragraph 4. Council notes that some pensioners eligible for pension credit do not apply for it and will lose winter fuel payments as a result. Therefore, we will undertake an awareness campaign to encourage residents in West Devon to check their eligibility. And then importantly, we will also continue to promote the availability of household support payments and home upgrade grants to help ensure that households with the lowest incomes can afford their heating bills. So I think it's really important that we do a publicity campaign that makes sure that all the most vulnerable elderly residents within West Devon understand what this council can do for them now and in the future. And it was really good in the last hub meeting that we heard about the success of the home upgrade grants that are going to be refurbishing about 55 different homes up to in the next year or so. A final paragraph, we call on the leader of the council to write to the Chancellor urging a review of the decision to restrict eligibility for the winter fuel allowance to those in receipt of pension credit and to underline the importance of the funding provided to local government to ensure that we can continue to support those in greatest need. So that's finally the substantive contribution is in red at the end, it's not just about saying you've made the wrong decision, but it's also saying, please continue to give funding to local government. For example, the Household Support Fund, which Jenny Hoskis's team admirably administers, is only guaranteed for another 6 months. And we need to know that that money, that sort of 125,000, is going to carry on coming through so that we can support those who really are in need. So thank you very much. I'm sorry it's quite a long motion and quite a long amendment, but I hope that's clear. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott, I don't think there's anybody in here that is concerned about how long you took there. Thank you very much. Councillor Mann, as you seconded it, would you like to speak on it?
Sure. One of the reasons that I think it was really important to make this difference is about this group of people who are going to be adversely affected. And we've seen quite a few of them in the role that I have had at Citizens Advice, people who are just above the level of eligible for pension credit. Today, Policy and Practice has actually published a report about this on a national level, which shows that the ratio is about 1 in 16, or a 16th of the pensioner population that fits this category of sort of being about £500 over the pension credit eligibility level. And those people, because of the way that benefits are being tied to pension credit, sort of a benefit like this, are missing out not just on one benefit, but on multiple benefits across a whole spectrum. And I think we really wanted to call out that that is the group that we really feel is going to be hard done by this type of a move, rather than all of our pensioners, which we know many of whom are not in a position where they're going to be as adversely affected despite losing the winter fuel payment. So it's that group of people who probably are single nurses, have retired, and have a very small pension that tops up above the state pension level, who are not going to be served by the way that this has been tested. And the hope would be that the new Labour government will look again at the way that that eligibility criteria is determined in order to include some of that additional group of people who are on a low income in West Devon, rather than necessarily returning it as a universal benefit.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Is anybody else wishing to speak on this? Thank you. Pardon? Yeah, you would.
I would.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak as a pensioner. I'd like to put a few other things into context. Sorry.
Oh, that's because you got. Right, there you go.
There we go. Okay. I'm speaking as a pensioner.
Is that all right?
Happy with that? Okay. I'm speaking as a pensioner, and so I'd like to put a few things into context from the pensioners' side of things here. Obviously, the winter fuel allowance was brought in to really cover some of the increases, well, the huge increases in the energy costs in the last few years. I've been receiving winter fuel allowance for quite a few years now. It's been a welcome thing, though. Not probably necessarily needing all that, but it's good that all pensioners get this. Now, the government are talking about the increase through the triple lock inflation, which covers the inflation, and it won't actually add any more to the pension in the future. So the actual winter fuel allowance is very, very useful. When you consider that the state pension is only £11,492 a year, how many people could actually live on that, even as a couple? It's quite a low figure when you think about it. Now, I understand there was obviously a cap on the energy companies, but that's going to be removed. And we've noted today that obviously the prices have risen this very morning. Energy companies are putting out extra bills this morning. One thing to actually note, obviously, that the British state pension is very low compared to other European countries. And we are 15th in the table, in the league table of pensions in the EU. You could argue that the cost of living has something to say about that, but actually the cost of living in all the main big countries in the EU are very, very similar. Yet we are still getting an awful lot less than those countries. And another thing to note is that a lot of people perceive that state pension is a benefit, which it isn't a benefit, it is a pension. It's a true pension. People have spent 40 years putting money into the national insurance scheme to give them a reasonable pension at the end of it. Now, the generations that we're actually talking about, all right, it's probably some people from the war generation, but it's mainly their sons and daughters from that generation. So it's the second generation that are having the problems at the moment. And that generation, obviously, who came through the war, suffered all the austerity of the country. There was rationing. I even had a ration book when I was a child, believe it or not. I'm of that age. And it's that generation in which actually rebuilt the country. And so they've been through all of austerity once, and now they're ending up in austerity in their old age. And I think that's a pretty poor thing. I had a poignant reminder on Sunday, travelling through France. I stopped off at a place called Saint-Marie-Église, which probably a lot of you know was where a lot of the D-Day landings and paratroopers dropped in. And I was quite surprised because it's the first time I've been there, and I saw that they have an effigy of a paratrooper hanging from the church with his parachute, because that happened in actual real life. But that was a poignant reminder of of the sacrifice that generation went through to give us the modern world and the modern Britain that we have now. There are quite a few widows from those people who fought in that war who are in a dire situation now. And of course, the widow's pension is a lot lower. They have a part pension from their deceased husbands. These were married late in life, obviously. And they are very proud people. They're very reluctant to sort of claim for what they see as a handout or a benefit. So it's very difficult to get them to actually apply for pension credit. And that's what I fear most of all. It's such a small amount. We're not talking a great deal of money, but it actually makes a big difference to those people. So I'm all in favour of Councillor Jury's motion. And especially when you take it into relating to, obviously, the public sector pay increases that are going on at the moment. People they have striked and they've worked a rule in order to get that sort of deal from the government. Pensioners can't do that. They're an easy hit. They can't go on strike. They can't work to rule. Demonstrating is probably the only thing they can actually do. I would like to see perhaps some of the public sector groups strike on behalf of the pensioners to increase their pension. But I think it's an important issue that we've brought up here today. And as I say, I'm all in favour of Councillor Jury's motion, and we should fight for the pensioners' rights. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor West.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Mayor, I'll get there in the end. Yeah, I'm afraid this is a reflection of successive governments' view of trying to simplify issues, things like universal credit, the issues around that and that implementation. And this, to me, it seems very, very similar in the sense that the government is doing these things, they're coming up with these ideas, but they are not taking account of the circumstances such as Councillor Vashon mentioned. There is no understanding of the grey, of the individual. It is about bulk, mass, it's cheap, it's easy to do. We don't need so many civil servants. And in many respects, it's a very short-sighted policy that's been going on over a number of years in both recent governments. And I am concerned by this. And I think, as we've suggested, there needs to be a rethink about how we look at some of these people, what levels they are at. I can note that Councillor Vashon mentioned the triple lock potentially increasing, but as we know, if we do not change tax thresholds, then any money they get will be taxed extra. And we know, again, that was a policy brought in by the previous government in terms of fiscal drag. So ultimately, from my point of view, I wholeheartedly support the motion as put forward by Councillor Elliott. It does not seek to look at numbers and try and make them look big. It is about caring for people here and now and how we can work forward. And so I am in support of Councillor Elliott's motion.
Thank you, Councillor West. Councillor Mott? And please sit, because the sound is so much better.
That's fine. I'm happy to stand.
Okay. As long as we can hear you.
I fully support the motion as put forward by Councillor Jury. I feel that the difficulty with removing the numbers is that while the percentage in fuel poverty is around 11%, as Councillor Elliott states, it fails to take into account the large numbers of pensioners who are just above that arbitrary figure, which means that they do not qualify for the credits, in many cases by just a few pounds. While not all pensioners will need that £300 to the same level, it is still £300 that is not being put into the local economy. Therefore, I feel it is important to retain the figures as given by Councillor Jury. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I really want to just reiterate a lot of what's been said. I support the motion and I support the amendments to the motion. The time of universal benefits is over and we're in a situation of means-tested benefits because of the constraints on government with finances. But also I feel that we should have some consideration given to those people that we've heard about, particularly women who are often in the position of having very small or no work pension at all and just enough to put them over the threshold. And I think they could certainly be included. They could widen the remit of who's eligible for winter fuel allowance. But also I think we could ask for some reassurance that we will continue as local authorities to get grant money so that we are able to help every person in fuel poverty across West Devon and not just that section. Thank you.
Is anybody else wishing to speak on this? Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to make a slightly different point, and that is, given that we're probably going to support the motion, the amended motion, and it talks about an awareness campaign, I suspect that most of the people that are most in poverty and most affected by this cut in the winter fuel allowance will not be digitally connected, if I could put it that way. So when we're constructing the awareness campaign, can we please take into account that we need to reach these people in some other way than just pushing out an email, because they probably won't see that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cheadle. I'm not speaking on this, but that is exactly what I'd thought as well. Anybody else? Councillor Ewings, yes, Leader.
I support the motion and the amendment. I would just like to say, anecdotally, there is huge concern within organisations that charities are going to be really hit by this decision, because a lot of people who can afford to live without the winter fuel allowance usually give it to their favourite charities. And I understand that the charity sector is quite worried. And I know of people, for example, in Tavistock, that actually give to local charities their winter fuel payment. Charities like TAS and things like that. So there is also that to bear in mind. That's nothing to do with this, but it will have an impact of that money not staying within our community on a charitable basis. So, you know, the charities can't do as much work. But we need to, as it says, write to the Chancellor to basically spell out our concerns and to inform her of how wrong this decision is of hers. How it was not in a manifesto. It sprung from nowhere, from a rumour in July, at the end of July, to it being absolutely said it was going to happen in September. I think it's a very cruel thing to have done. I think the election possibly could have actually changed a lot of pensioners' votes if they thought this is what was coming. So I think we really need to spell out quite clearly how disappointed we are that this decision has just been an axe that has fallen on pensioners, which is really unfair. Also, to be politically correct, I'm not sure we should have the word elderly pensioners. I think we refer to people as older pensioners.
Right, please, anybody else want to speak on this? All right, Councillor Moody.
There was just one thing that came to my mind now, and it's whilst we're in the process of proposing amendments. In the last
Excuse me, Councillor Moody, can you not cover your moustache and speak into the microphone?
Maybe we should get some new systems.
Don't shout.
In the final paragraph, where it says that we call on the leader to write to the council, as a chancellor, for the winter fuel allowance for those in receipt of pension credits. Also, the other people that are being affected in this borough are people who are on disability benefits. They are excluded from this winter fuel allowance as well, where they were receiving it previously. And I wonder whether, is this the time to include that into the letter to the Chancellor?
Has anybody any clarification on that? Are disabled people?
If you are on PIP, once you were entitled to winter fuel allowance, but now you're not. It's not just state pensioners, it's state pensioners and disabled people who are affected.
Councillor Ball.
Madam Mayor, I think maybe it could be solved by just saying all those affected, because that way it covers whichever group we're in.
Pardon? Councillor Elliott, would you, in your amendment, would you be proposed to accept that all those affected? So, because you raise a very valid point, Councillor Moody.
I think it's better to take it outside of this meeting to be absolutely clear who is affected by this particular piece. And this affects how we write to the Chancellor, which is much more an administrative matter, rather than trying to fine-tune the wording now. Because I think most of us, there's a lot of different benefits and different ways that people... So I believe this was specifically about the winter fuel allowance for people over pension age. But also, I think we need to be clear whether we're debating the motion or the amendment, and whether the amendment has been accepted, but that's just a procedural thing.
I'm sorry, I don't wish to cloud the issue today. I think I'll just happy with the amendment as it is, and we can discuss it at a later date.
Thanks, Councillor Moody. So I'm now going to invite, I see no one else wanting to speak, so I'm going to ask Councillor Moody, Councillor Jury, to speak on this and just...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can look moody if you would like me to. Thank you to everybody for their contributions. I particularly like to thank Councillor Elliott for vastly improving my syntax and the general read of the motion, so that's much appreciated. I would still have preferred to have seen some reference to the numbers, whether that be likely numbers or the overall numbers within the motion. I accept what you say, and we're perhaps as guilty as you trying to use blunt instruments here as the government in the past might have been. But it gives some idea of the scale of the problem that there could be within West Devon, which for 2,000 or 3,000 people is still a big problem, not to mention those who fall just above the threshold. However, I do wish us to have a united front on this, and I think the motion as it's been submitted does carry forward for me the broad outline of what we're trying to do, and the really important thing of making sure that we are doing within this borough as much as we can to assist the residents of this borough who might experience these difficulties, and that's the important thing rather than any debate about numbers. So on balance, I am happy to accept the substantive motion and would like to recommend to all my colleagues that we vote in favour of it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jury. Councillor Edmonds, are you happy to second that? Yes, I'm happy. Okay, thank you very much. So put it... Does anybody want to discuss the substantive motion further? I think we've covered that quite well. And Councillor Ewings, yes?
I would just like to thank Councillor Jury and his group for their willingness to do this, and that we can show a united front on such an important issue. The only other thing I'd like to know from Councillor Elliott, she's got the most wonderful footer with phone numbers, which I believe arrived from Mrs. Hodgkiss, on her emails. I sent you an email. It says, for pension credit, this number, and for something else, this, and I was really impressed with it, and I'd like it on the bottom of mine. And she's looking puzzled, but it was
no, I'm not
there.
I'm not looking.
No, not you, Councillor Elliott.
No, I'm also looking puzzled.
Yes, can we
take it outside the meeting?
Yes, please take this outside the meeting, leader. And you know, I think everyone would like it actually, but. So can we please, it's now the vote. So of all those in favour of the substantive motion, which Councillor Moody, Councillor Jury and Councillor Edmonds have proposed and seconded and supported. So
can we just be really clear? I'm sorry, I'm very procedural here. So I understand that Councillor Jury has accepted my amendment, which I'm not calling it my amendment because I discussed it with various members of our group, and having accepted it, we're then voting on the substantive motion as amended, just so that everybody is really clear what they're voting on. So we'd be voting on the text that is on the screen now. Sorry, Mr. White, I'm probably doing your job for you.
Any time, Councillor Elliott, any time.
No, and don't worry, this is actually the first time that I've done this because the last meeting was cancelled. So all those in favour, please show.
Thank you, Mayor. That's unanimous on the substantive motion as per the screens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, members, because I think we're showing a lot of compassion there, which we need to as councillors. So we now move on to...
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. We now need to actually... Do we need to actually now take it forward? No. Sorry, I'm being as bad as Councillor Elliott.
So, as I was saying, we now move to the motion on notice received from Councillor Jury on little b, number 8b. Councillor Jury, could you move this motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the following motion, and there is a word missing in the published document, so just make sure that is in there, which I think has now been adjusted. The Council notes the intention of the Government to suspend previously approved investment in regenerating rail infrastructure and the effect that may have on plans to consider the business case to reinstate the Tavistock to Borough rail line. The Council also notes that this decision is to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis during October and resolves to write to the Right Honourable Louise Haigh, Secretary of State, to the 3 members of Parliament whose constituencies cover the borough area and the 2 members of Parliament in Plymouth to set out the case for investment in this project, including the benefits to the environment in general and the A386 in particular from encouraging commuters and other travellers onto rail travel, the benefits to the economy of West Devon and in particular Tavistock and Bere Alston, including improved opportunities for education and work, and the aspirational benefits afforded to the residents of West Plymouth from an improved rail service and the opportunities that provides for the regeneration of that area. If I could have a seconder, please.
Thank you, Councillor Edmonds. Councillor Jury, would you like to introduce this motion?
Yes, of course. I mean, members will be well aware of the amount of work that this council has done in collaboration with its various partners on this particular rail scheme. We've seen the benefits that the return of railways to Oakhampton has brought to that area, and I think there are huge benefits that we've identified not only to Tavistock and West Devon, but also, as mentioned in the motion, to areas of West Plymouth by reinstating a rail service from Tavistock, hopefully round to Ivy Bridge. I think this is exactly the sort of investment that we should be making and government should be making if we are to grow the economy and also if we are serious about reaching net zero. So on those grounds alone, I'd like to commend this motion to the Council.
Thanks, Councillor Jury. Councillor Edmonds, are you happy to second this? And would you like to speak on it? Not at this stage, right, thank you. Leader, I believe you wish to speak, and we've discussed some things on here, haven't we?
I would just like to make a couple of corrections, which are factual, to reinstate the Tavistock to Plymouth rail line with an aspiration that it goes to Ivy Bridge and also a new station be opened at Plimpton. This issue is very serious and very important, particularly for West Devon, but also for Plymouth. We're currently trying to discuss with all the MPs the seriousness of this case and how serious we are. We know that Plymouth City Council are concerned about the impact on the roads into Plymouth from the A386 with the development at Bickley of the thousands of houses that are proposed for there, and they will come out onto the A386. That is going to be the only exit from there. It will be, from memory, a mini roundabout, because as you go on to what we call the Plessy roundabout, you can't have two big roundabouts together. You have to have a little one, then a big one. We were told in this chamber when that application was first being mooted by our South Hams officers, who we did quiz at the time about this planning application. So there is a real case to take as much traffic off the A386 as possible. We know now that children do go to school from Bere Elston on the train into Plymouth, and we need to be able to offer that opportunity to Tavistock young people, their parents, to make a decision about schooling. A lot of parents do like to send their children to Ivy Bridge, so if that was to be included, that would be marvellous. So we do need to be working on that. We have, as a council, we welcomed our 3 MPs, and I'm looking to Mr. Bates for reassurance. We did, when we welcomed them, we stressed what our important issues were that our MPs could work with us on. And within our welcome letter, we did talk about this railway project. So we have already done it, but I'm in total agreement with Councillor Jury that another little knock on their door in their email box would be really helpful, just to show how serious we are. I do know that Councillor Mrs. Johnson actually got in touch with, I can't think of Fred's surname, with the MP Fred Thomas, and discussed the railway and its importance in her TAVI rail role with him during the election campaign, bringing it to his full attention and where we are. We know that Councillor Tudor Evans, the leader of Plymouth City Council, was seeking a meeting with the Right Honourable Louise Hay, the Secretary of State for Transport, last week at their conference, and to try and lobby to get this railway back into serious contention. There is, as some people will say, there's only 5 miles of track, and actually it's very true, there is only 5 miles of track, and when you can say it as quickly as that, it shows that actually it's not the biggest project in the world to get done. The benefits it will bring into St Budo and Devonport, and we do have young children that go to school at Devonport within, you know, the Tavistock area for this train, that actually, educationally, Councillor Jury is quite right. There are many educational opportunities. There are our students that study in Plymouth and still live at home. So there is many demographics of age that this will benefit, and to keep fighting for it is really on the top of our agenda, as well as homelessness before I get hit. And we want to encourage that.
Thanks, Leader. Are you making an amendment?
Only to say on the 4th line down, the Tavistock to Borough Railway is Tavistock to Plymouth. And in the second bullet point, Tavistock and Plymouth.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder for that?
Happy to second.
Oh, Councillor Jury, sorry, are you happy to accept that? It is generally called Tavistock.
I'm not averse to accepting it. The intention in my wording was that it is the rail track between Tavistock and Birleston that's being reintegrated. But, you know, it's as broad as it's long, isn't it? I mean, I know it's not in terms of a railway line, but...
Are you accepting it?
I'm content to accept the amendments. Thank you.
Councillor Edmonds, are you happy to accept that? Microphone for the viewers.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to accept that.
Okay, thank you. Right, so Councillor Ball, you wanting to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's obviously a subject close to my heart, as many of you know, but involved with a couple of others here in the campaign for Oakhampton over many years. And we're now reaping the benefit of that hard work and an effort by many people over many years. The leader referred to that. And I wonder, I'd like to come back to this point if I may, but I wonder if it's worth us mentioning that in the communication, because, you know, it was brought in under the last government, and I guess there's an opportunity for this government to take some political, you know, kind of celebration if they, you know, do oversee connecting Tavistock to Birleston. So it might be worth reminding them the success of the Oakhampton line, but I'll come back to that more formally in a moment. I think it's important to remember a couple of things. The leader referred to aspirations. The aspiration of the northern route is a very important aspiration and should be for us all. Just this week, again, Dawlish was closed, having a knock-on effect of connectivity from, you know, into the southwest peninsula. Every time it closes, it costs Network Rail hundreds of thousands of pounds and costs the local economy a lot of money as well. So it's really important to remember that Plymouth's the biggest city with only one railway line going into it. By connecting the Birleston to Tavistock part, opening up the connection into Plymouth on the existing line already, that gives us the opportunity then to start waving the flag and jumping up and down and shouting from both sides of of Mary Tavy, about connecting the whole line to give the opportunity, not just for ourselves of connectivity into Plymouth, but for the very benefit of the extra benefits that have been mentioned by Councillor Jury and the leader for those areas of Plymouth that we've discussed. So I think it's important to have that as an aspiration as well. Whether we add that in now is probably not that important, but I think it gives us motivation to look at this and get behind this. But I would like to propose that we put something like to build on the success of the existing or the recently connected Oakhampton line in relation to the context of this request into government, because it gives some context of why it is important and gives some evidence of that when things are done and gone well, you know, there's benefit for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ball. Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's really important that we refer to it as Tavistock to Plymouth. It draws in the support from Plymouth City Council, from the MPs on which the line travels. It makes it a much stronger case. I mean, this will bring huge benefits to the people of West Devon, but it will also bring benefits to the people of Plymouth. And the stronger case that we can have, the better case we will have to get this through. And it's just so important. We've heard of the success of the Dartmoor line going from Oakhampton to Exeter. We need that replicated here in West Devon so that we get the benefits here in the other end of West Devon and towards Plymouth. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Has anybody else anything to say? Councillor West.
Having moved here in 1997, having lived in Birmingham and dealt with rush hour traffic in Birmingham, Plymouth was an absolute breeze. It really was really good getting in from Yelverton as I did on the 386. However, as we know, all over time, we've had at least another 10 traffic lights put in, etc., etc. So for me, if you can take any traffic on the road travelling from Tavistock, having been sat there at Yelverton, trying to get on with stream after stream of traffic from Tavistock, no offence, you know, it was a bit of a pain, but no offence. But the thing for me about this is that when we consider that we're already now looking at road proposals, well, they're being built now, as we know, the dualling of the stretch from the George Pub up to the Walwell roundabout. And when that has been done, I think I'm right, Councillor Cheadle, they were talking about 45 seconds improvement, something like that?
Yes, the calculation is not including the impact of the 2,500 houses to be built at Walwell. So the journey time from Yelverton to the Manadon roundabout, as a result of the roadworks that we're talking about, will improve by 40 seconds. Now, you know, that's not a lot. And, you know, one traffic light, so bad traffic lights, you're caught. So the issue for me is that all this money has been spent on improving the road system. It makes great sense and logical sense in terms of the infrastructure to support a motion like this. Any traffic we can take off that road is a huge benefit, as we know, in terms of environment. I think also in terms of the leisure industry as well, because the cyclists take their life in their hands when they go on the 386. What I would like to see at some point, and we did discuss this when we were looking at the Bickley expansion of housing, was the fact that we do put a purpose-built cycle track along the 386. And that would really help. And I would hope, we talk about integration, we're talking about active travel, that this is something that we are able to do in the future, because that again will improve the flow of traffic that we go through. So I'm totally in favour of this motion. I just wish that sometimes we might go a little bit further. I hate to think how bad it's going to be once we actually do start having to build the number of houses the government is currently proposing in West Devon. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Cheadle, please.
Well, Councillor West has just started to introduce the subject I wanted to talk about, which was the MPPF is out for consultation at the moment. And if the figures in there are to be believed, there will be a massive increase in housing in both Plymouth and West Devon. eye-watering numbers. Now, if that comes to pass, the A386, as it is at the moment, will become a nightmare. And I think in our letter to the Chancellor, we need to weave in the fact that the government's policies need to be integrated. If they want extra houses, they must be prepared to pay for the infrastructure required to support those houses. So I very much welcome this amendment, this proposal from Councillor Jury. But in our letter to the Chancellor, can we draw in the sort of integration of government policies? Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Mott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wonder if it's worth mentioning the benefits to East Cornwall as well in our motion, just because while I appreciate we are looking directly within West Devon and Plymouth, it does also benefit the residents of East Cornwall as well, who will be able to travel and use that line easier with a greater connection.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know at the Civic Service there were representatives from Lanson, and they are actively trying to improve the Oakhampton to Lanson area, and we need to work together. Thanks, Councillor Casbolt.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to agree with the motion of Councillor Jury, but I'd also like to second the motion of Councillor Ball of getting the wording amended to draw on the success of Oakhampton.
Okay, so we'll just go back to...
Sorry, I'm now going to defer to the Chief Exec, please,
Thank you, Mayor. As I understand it, Councillor Ball and Councillor Casbolt would like weaved into the substantive motion words along the lines of to build on the success of the recently connected Oakhampton line. So the issue is whether Councillors Jury and Edmonds would be willing to accept that being weaved in.
Would you gentlemen be accepting that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd be happy to include that. I mean, perhaps it can just be included as an initial bullet point or something of that nature along the lines of the wording that Mr. White has already mentioned.
Yes, I'd be happy for that to be included, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
And now I've got two more speakers, Councillor Johnson and then Councillor Ewings, please. Sorry if it's muddled up. But
I think the correct name of the line is the Dartmoor line. The line that goes from Oakhampton to Exeter is referred to as the Dartmoor line.
Yeah. Thanks.
No, I know what I was going to say. As a point of information to Councillor Ball, within our welcome letter, we did mention the success of the Oakhampton project and that how we were entrusted with the 12.5 million to build the Oakhampton interchange. So they are aware of that in their letters that they initially received. The other answer, as well as what Councillor Mrs Johnson has said, is that the Beer Alston part was taken out because the theory was who in London knew where Beer Alston was. And that was one of the clear decisions that was taken at a meeting that I was at, that it needs to be Plymouth. Government ministers have heard of Plymouth, but they just haven't heard of Beer Alston. So that's when Tavi Rail got it to become the Plymouth to Tavistock line. So just points of information.
Thank you very much. So I'm concluding this debate now. Councillor Jury, sorry? What?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I agree with everything that's been said by everyone who's contributed, so thank you for those additions to the debate. Clearly, we all agree that this is a welcome investment in the area which will greatly benefit the area, and that it is regrettable that there's been this pause, but hopefully we can get the powers that be to look at the situation and to reinstate the funding that will enable us to get to the business case and beyond. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Jury. And Councillor Mott also wanted to mention Cornwall officers. So how do we do that procedurally?
As a bit of housekeeping procedure, now I've put in 3 words on the last bullet point to say the aspirational benefits of all the residents of West Plymouth and East Cornwall, which I think hopefully will encompass Councillor Mott's point. And again, it's whether Councillors Jury and Edmonds are willing to accept that as part of their motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to accept that as the wording for those amendments to be included in the wording of the motion.
And Councillor Edmonds, you'll accept that as well? Yes. Thank you very much. So now, gentlemen, do I put that to the...
So where we are, we have in red font 3 amendments which have come through during the debate, Mayor, and those have been accepted by Councillors Jury and Edmonds as proposed and seconder. So as per the screens with those red font additions is the substantive motion, to which I'd like to suggest we vote on.
Thank you. So, members, is everyone happy to vote on that, please? All those in favour, please show. Nemcom.
That is unanimous. The substantive motion as per the screens. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, members, and that was good debate, and I'm getting into the hang of it now. So we're on to item 8, committee minutes, and I call Councillor Cheadle to present the minutes of the Planning and Licensing Committee meetings from the 14th of May, the 4th of June, the 2nd of July, the 30th of July and the 10th of September.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Development Management and Licensing Committee held on 14th of May, 4th of June, 2nd of July, 30th of July and 10th of September 2024 be received and noted. They are minutes DMNL 57 to DMNL 63, DMNL 1 to DMNL 8, DMNL 9 to DMNL 16, DMNL 17 to DMNL 24, and DMNL 25 to DMNL 34, and can be found between the pages of 13 and 21, 23 and 26, 27 and 31, 33 and 39, 41 and 45, respectively. Can I have a seconder for those?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mott. Councillor Mott seconded. All those in favour, please show.
That's clearly noted. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thanks, noted. Go to item 8B, the Hub Committee meetings, and I call upon Councillor Ewings to present the minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We had a slight giggle at Councillor Cheadle. It sounded like he was reading out the lottery numbers. Bingo. Right, because I'm now going to do the same. I move that the minutes of the meetings of the Hub Committee held on the 11th of June 2024, 23rd of July and the 24th of September be received and noted, with the exception of minute HC 3124, parts 2A and 2B, Council Tax Reduction Scheme. They are minutes HC 124 to HC 1124, HC 1224 to HC 2124, and HC 2224 to HC 3424, and can be found between the pages 47 and 50, 51 and 55 of the agenda papers, and pages 1 to 6 of the separate circulation of the papers of 24th of September 2024. May I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
In respect of recommendation HC 3124, parts 2A and 2B, I propose the following: that council be recommended to A, adopt a local council tax reduction scheme for 2025-26 as set out in the agenda report presented to the Hub meeting on the 24th of September. Little b, to delegate authority to the head of revenues and benefits to agree the uprating of the working age regulations incorporated into the local council tax reduction scheme in line with those published by the Department for Work and Pensions. May I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second again.
Yep. We put that to the vote, please. All those in favour?
That's unanimous for that recommendation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Now to we haven't got Councillor Kimber or Councillor West. Councillor West is going to present it. Thank you very much. We've got 2 absentees. Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 25th of June. Thanks, Councillor West.
You'll all be glad to know that this is quite short compared to... I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 25th of June 2024 be received and noted. They are O&S 1/24 to O&S 9/24 and can be found between pages 57 and 62 of the published agenda papers. Could I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Cunningham. There are no amendments, so recommendations. So all to the vote, please. All those in favour, please show.
Those minutes are noted. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And now to the Audit and Governance Committee meeting. And Councillor Johnson is going to present this. Thanks. Busy day for you today, Councillor Johnson.
Yes, it is indeed, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee held on the 23rd of July 2024 be received and noted, with the exception of recommendations AC 03/24 and AC 08/24. They are minutes AC 01/24 to AC 11/24 and can be found between pages 63 and 69 of the agenda papers. Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you very much, members. All those in favour, please show.
Those minutes are noted. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. In respect of recommendation AC 03/24, I propose the following. That Council be recommended A, to agree the draft contract procedures rules, brackets, as set out in Appendix B to the published agenda report as presented to the committee meeting, close brackets, subject to, little 1, replacement of the word executive with the term hub committee, and little 2, procedure rule 2.3 brackets A being updated to list those officers' roles that are involved in the process of granting, brackets, any variations or exemptions to the rules to take effect on the 25th of February 2025 or such later date as the Procurement Act 2023 is brought into force. And B, subject to A, to amend the Constitution accordingly. Could I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Ball. All those in favour, please show.
Thank you, Mayor. That's unanimous for minute AC 03/24. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, and in respect
of...
sorry, I beg your pardon. And in respect of recommendation AC 08/24, I propose the following. That Council be recommended to agree the proposed changes to the Council's Constitution, brackets, as set out at Appendix A of the presented agenda report, close brackets, and to adopt the Constitution as amended. Could I have a seconder, please?
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show.
That is also 25. That's now unanimous. Thank you, Mayor, for recommendation AC 08/24 on the Constitution. Thank you.
Sorry, yes, it's tricky when you turn over 2 pages, isn't it? So sorry about that, members. That's concludes the meeting, and I would just like to thank everyone for attending. Councillor Greenbury-Pullen, I'm sorry I didn't welcome you at first, but welcome, and I hope that you're very happy in the council, and that we all get on respectfully and politely and in a happy environment. So thank you very much, members, and I call this meeting closed at